Ever get this, like, this feeling? Some stories are just, they're just begging to be told. And today, we're going deep on one of those, the Misanthropic Luciferian Order.
Yeah.
They later become, get this, the Temple of the Black Light.
Yeah.
But, spoiler alert, the name change
Yeah.
didn't really soften their image
Right.
at all. You sent over a ton of articles and excerpts about these guys, and whoa, boy, it's some heavy stuff, man. So are you ready to unpack it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of fascinating, isn't it? You have this tiny group tucked away in Sweden, practically invisible.
Yeah.
But their beliefs and what they did, it's like they sent shockwaves that rippled out, touching everything, even the occult. Wild.
Like, go against the grain. But, like, on another level entirely.
Right.
What gets me is how it all starts super simple, right? 1995, three guys. We got Vlad Nemesis, Koshnud, but he actually, like, calls himself Freighter Nemedial.
Right.
And then there's John Nudfight. I mean, come on. Those names. Straight out of some, like, dark fantasy novel.
Yeah.
But these guys, real deal. And they weren't just, messing around with spooky aesthetics. They were committed deeply.
Oh, absolutely.
We're talking vampire pentagram tattoos on their skin, man. That's a statement. Not just teenage rebellion. This was deeper, much darker.
Right. And that detail, that tattoo, it tells you everything. This wasn't a phase. It was like their entire identity. And here's where it gets really unsettling. 1997, Vlad and John, they end up at the center of a murder that shook Sweden, the Joseph Ben Medor case.
Okay, yeah, we got to talk about this murder. It's like a turning point for how people see the MLO. The articles you shared, man, they're intense. And it's clear this wasn't just some random violence. This gets into some really murky waters. It makes you question everything about what they believed. And if those beliefs, well, if they push them to do something horrific.
Exactly. Because the MLO, they weren't your typical Satanists. They called their whole belief system Chaos-Gnosticism. And I think it's there in their ideology where we might find some answers about the murder, about what could drive someone to such extremes.
Okay, so let's get into it. What is Chaos-Gnosticism, really? What do these guys believe? And how did those beliefs actually play out in their lives? I mean, in the real world, not just in some, like, dark ritual chamber. Okay, so Chaos Gnosticism, intense. And honestly, the stuff you shared, wild. It's like trying to wrap your head around a whole different reality. You know? Good thing I've got you to guide us through it. So break it down. What do these guys actually believe?
Okay, so imagine, right, believing the entire universe, everything. It's a prison.
Whoa.
And not some metaphor, but a real cosmic jail cell. That's Chaos Gnosticism at its core.
Heavy.
They saw, like, the Abrahamic God, not benevolent, no way, more like this foolish demiurge who, like, trapped us in this limited, messed up existence.
So they flipped the script on pretty much every religion out there.
Totally. Forget heaven, forget enlightenment, at least how we usually think of it. Their goal was to shatter this cosmic prison, right? Get back to what they called infinite-dimensional chaos, pure being, like before creation.
They wanted to, like, hit the reset button on everything.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting. How do you pull off a cosmic jailbreak?
Right. Is it just, like, believing it really, really hard? Or was there, like, a plan?
This is where their magic comes in. Central to their whole thing, these things called black flames.
Okay.
So picture it. A spark of that original chaos, that raw energy, it's trapped inside each of us. They're rituals. They're magic. All about waking that up, liberating those black flames, breaking those chains of creation,
So it's like weird cosmic self-help. Unleash your inner black flame. Escape the universe.
Kind of, but it's a bit more complicated. Remember Labor Azurate, that grimoire you sent? It wasn't just theory, it was like their blueprint.
Oh yeah, that thing was intense. I tried reading it. Not exactly a beach read.
Right, but it gives you a glimpse into their heads.
Totally. And what's crazy is how these, like, out there huge ideas, they show up in their lives outside the MLO too. John Nudfight,
right?
He wasn't just an occultist. Dude was a musician. Frontman for Dissection, the black metal band. Exactly. Now that you mention it, did read something about that. Black metal Satanism to kind of cliche, no?
You'd think so, but with Dissection with John, it was deeper. Their music, especially their album Raincoast, it's like Liber Azurit set to music, dark, chaotic.
So they're literally putting their beliefs into their music.
Yeah.
It's like taking those vibes from the grimoire and blasting them out at a concert.
Exactly. It shows you this wasn't just some ritual chamber thing. This was their art, their lives, their worldview.
And that's where it gets even darker. Right.
Yeah.
Because now we're not just talking music and books. We're talking connections to other groups. The Werewolf Legion, the Order of the Nine Angles. Those names, Not exactly warm and fuzzy.
And you're right to be uneasy. These groups, they're known for extremism, violence. Which brings up a big question. Were the MLO's beliefs just talk? A way to rebel? Or was there something more sinister going on? Did those black flames they wanted to unleash, did they spill over into real harm?
Especially with Joseph Ben Medor's murder. That's where things go from unsettling to downright terrifying.
And those details, that case, that's where we might find some answers. Or at least get a little closer to understanding.
It's like we're stepping into the shadows now.
Yeah.
Out of those abstract ideas and into like a real tragedy. The Joseph Ben Medor murder.
So who was he? How do you end up mixed up with the MLO?
It's summer 1997, Gothenburg. They find Joseph Ben Medor in Keeler's Park. 2 gunshots. One to the heart, one to the head.
Brutal.
It sends shockwaves through Sweden.
Yeah, I bet. The articles you sent, they talked about the investigation. It sounded like, at first, the police, they were clueless, random violence, hate crime, something else entirely.
Exactly. Those early days, just searching for answers, that's when the MLO pops up.
Okay.
The investigation, it leads them right to Vlad and John and what they find in their homes. Chillin'.
Right, this is where it gets really intense. We're talking satanic altars, weapons, human skulls at Vlad's place. Like something out of a horror movie. It's grim, for sure. Shows you the dark side of the MLO. And yeah, those skulls definitely raise some eyebrows. But what they actually use them for, that's still a mystery.
So unsettling.
Blech.
But the murder weapon itself, that was at John's apartment, wasn't it? That's pretty damning.
Absolutely. And then Vlad's girlfriend, the one who reported him for domestic abuse, her testimony, it blows the whole case open. She tells them Vlad and John did it. They killed Joseph Ben Medor.
Wow. Talk about a turn of events. So they're confronted with this, right? What happens? Do they crack?
At first, denial. Total denial. But then the evidence piles up. The gun, the witnesses, everything in their homes, the truth starts coming out.
And that's where we get those 2 different stories, right?
Yeah.
What really happened that night?
Yeah. So John, he says they met Joseph Ben Medor at a bar. Says Ben Medor saw how they were dressed and, like, got curious, want to know about Satanism. Paints this picture of, like, an awkward conversation ending up at John's apartment.
And Vlad.
Different story. The basics are similar. But Vlad. He says John's the one who fired both shots, heart and head. Both admit to taking the taser and the gun from John's apartment. And both admit to going to Keeler's Park with Joseph Ben Medor.
So planned or not, it's chilling, man. What about motive? Why Joseph Ben Medor?
That's the million-dollar question. It's where personal prejudice, satanic beliefs, the whole, allure of the forbidden, it all gets murky. The investigation, it uncovered some seriously messed up stuff about the MLO's rituals. Meditation, demon stuff. Animal sacrifices. Cats, mostly.
Along cats.
Yeah. And even worse, they talked about needing to make a human sacrifice. Vlad was pushing for it.
They weren't just, like, debating it for fun. They were serious.
Seemed like it. And get this. They even had a list of potential victims. People who used to be in the MLO. People from John's band, Dissection, even John's own girlfriend.
That is chilling.
Yeah.
So was Joseph Ben Medor, was he their human sacrifice?
The investigation, they never figured that out for sure. Was it a hate crime? Was it a ritual? Some experts, they think maybe Ben Medor's sexual orientation made him a target, fit with the whole misanthropic worldview. Others, they say it's just what happens when extreme beliefs turn into action.
It's like,
yeah,
there's no real answer, just possibilities.
Exactly.
But what about Vlad and John? What happened to them after all this?
Both convicted, sentenced to 10 years. But, and this is a big deal, they only ended up serving 6.
6 years? For murder? That doesn't seem like nearly enough.
A lot of people were furious. It sparked a huge debate about the whole case. Just goes to show, even when the legal stuff is done, the moral questions, they stick around.
So they get out. What do? Lay low.
John, not so much. He went back to music, got Dissection back together, their lyrics, even more intense, more connected to the MLO. He even had this public fight with the Megadeth frontman.
Oh, yeah, I think I read about that.
Yeah, the Megadeth guy refused to share a stage with them. Their beliefs, John's past, it was too much.
It's like he couldn't escape the MLO,
Yeah.
Even if he wanted to.
Maybe. And then, in 2006, John, he took his own life.
It's almost like inevitable in a way. A dark end to a dark story.
Hard to say for sure, but it does make you think, about how powerful beliefs can be, how deeply they can affect someone.
We've gone deep on the Misanthropic Luciferian Order. What's the takeaway? What do we learn from something this heavy, this complicated?
It's a reminder that believing something and acting on it, there's a thin line between those two. The MLO. They were small, but they had a huge impact. It shows you how powerful ideas can be in life and death.
Man, that's intense. The MLO, they make us face some really uncomfortable truths about, like, what it means to be human, that pull towards the forbidden, and how darkness, it can take root anywhere.
Absolutely. It's a story that should make us think about what we believe, about being aware of extremism in all its forms.
It's been a deep dive, that's for sure, into a dark, complicated world. If you want to learn more, we've got all the articles and stuff linked in the show notes. And until next time, keep those minds open, but remember, sometimes the most unsettling discoveries, they're the ones we make about ourselves.